Corey LaJoie reacts to getting let go by Spire Motorsports, and Xfinity Series free agency begins to heat up. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. If you missed it, earlier today, I uploaded part 1 of a two-parter. I picked out the 10 drivers who I believe have been the most pleasant surprises so far this season. Part 2 is coming soon, a little less pleasant. But in this episode, we're talking news, we're talking rumors. We'll talk Corey LaJoie in a moment, but first, what is 23XI Racing doing posting driver teasers during the off weekend? It appears as though someone new is going to drive the 23XI number 50 Mobil 1 sponsored Toyota sometime later this year. If this clip is to be taken at face value, there's really only one world-class driver that silhouette could be. That blurry figure has to be Juan Pablo Montoya, right? And look at the hairline, the forehead in this freeze frame. It has to be, right? Who else could that possibly be? Unless 23XI is just completely pranking us. They unzip and all of a sudden, oh, it's Riley Herbst, surprise, gotcha. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about this, but wow, wouldn't it be crazy if Juan Pablo Montoya came back to NASCAR even for a one-off? When did he last race in NASCAR? It's been close to a decade, right? 2013? He was part-time in 2014. So yeah, roughly 10 years since Juan Pablo Montoya last raced in Cup. We'll see if that's who this turns out to be. That wasn't the point of this video. I just saw that clip and couldn't resist reacting to it. I want to talk about Corey LaJoie because Corey LaJoie talked for 30 plus minutes about Corey LaJoie on his podcast Stacking Pennies this week. LaJoie was clearly emotional during this episode where he directly addressed the recent news that he will not return to Spire Motorsports next season.
You know, you go through all the emotions, mad, sad. I think where I'm at currently, a week removed, is that I'm super appreciative.
Some of what he said here was, I think, eye-opening, sparked some interesting conversations. It was obviously a little sad. He sort of spun it as being bittersweet. And some of what LaJoie said, I think, was taken a little bit out of context. I'm starting to feel bad for the guy. I feel like fans all over social media are just piling on at this point. Shoot, even backmarker Truck Series teams are shooting down any potential rumors of LaJoie racing for them. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go listen to the full episode of Stacking Pennies or watch it. I'll put the link to the YouTube version down in the description below because there is a lot there and I'm only going to touch on some of the highlights. Watching Stacking Pennies this week felt a lot like watching someone give their own eulogy. Obviously Corey is upset, he is sad, he is disappointed that he won't race for Spire next year, but he also seems at peace with it. He's content in many ways with his driving career. If this is it, it's been fun. He routinely references his faith, his family. He has other things in life that are just as, if not more important to him than driving race cars. He continues to reiterate during this episode that, financially speaking, he'll be fine. He explicitly says that he still believes he can be a top 15 driver on Sundays, but simultaneously accepts that it's in God's hands. Whatever happens next, whatever door opens or closes next, that's what's meant to be. So it was interesting listening to this clip. You can tell he's still very emotional, but you could also tell he'd spent the last week really thinking through a lot in his life. So that's why, again, I'm only touching on some of the highlights here. Even if you're not a Corey LaJoie fan, I find this to be a very interesting half-hour episode of content. One section that really jumped out at me, LaJoie expressed some frustration with fans who only look at the stats when assessing or analyzing a driver's skill.
I haven't driven for, at the time, a top 30 team in points in the Truck Series, in the Xfinity Series, or the Cup Series. When you forego 4 or 5 years of your life to commit to building a team from the ground up, you know that you're not going to have the stats to back that up because you don't have the people.
Obviously, Corey LaJoie's Cup Series numbers are not good. He's never won a race. He's never made the playoffs. At non-super speedways, he's never finished in the top 5 or the top 10. It's not good. But what LaJoie wants fans to understand is that there's a greater context behind those numbers. And one point LaJoie makes that is 100% correct. He has never been in a top Cup, Xfinity, or Truck Series ride full time. That's just the truth. This year was probably the best car Corey LaJoie has ever driven full-time, and no one on his team is top 20 in points, so he has never been in truly competitive equipment. That is just a fact. I mean, shoot, the guy drove for BK Racing, Go Fast for many years. Those teams never had a shot. That's not to defend the disappointing results this season. The point is just when you see no wins, very few top 5s, top 10s, there is greater context that a lot of fans either willingly choose to ignore or just don't understand. So his point about not being in top equipment full-time ever is correct. A lot of folks are piling on Corey LaJoie. I think he has the right to at least somewhat defend himself. That's a fair defense, in my opinion. Still, this year was disappointing. Last year, he was 25th in points, 0 DNFs, showed some promising signs. This year should not have been a step backwards. It was. Again, I think Spire making the move away from LaJoie is fair, but fans piling on LaJoie like he's some sort of bum. He's made mistakes. He admits he's made mistakes in this episode. Again, the stats don't tell the full story in NASCAR. They never do. Something else Corey LaJoie said in this episode was questionable, to say the least, and I've seen a lot of folks run with this quote on social media. Again, I think it's lacking some context, but this isn't exactly a great soundbite from Corey LaJoie. LaJoie said that he's excited to finish the year off with Spire. He still hopes to get them a win. This was his comment.
I'm pretty motivated to be the first one to put a win banner on the wall at Spire, a real one. They have a trophy, but that wasn't really a real team back in the day. So it's a real team now. Still want to be the first one to put a trophy in the trophy case on the cup side there.
Ooh, LaJoie is referencing Justin Haley's win in the rain-shortened 2019 Coke Zero 400 at Daytona. That quote reads really bad. Oh, that's not a real win. Spire wasn't a real team at that point. Like, who are you to dismiss someone else's victory, their trophy? That does come across as extremely arrogant. But again, if we do add very important context, I don't think it's quite as bad as social media is making it out to be. Again, I'm just trying to be fair. Spire Motorsports in 2019 is nothing like Spire Motorsports in 2024. Today, Spire's its own team. They've got their own shop. They assemble their own cars. In 2019, they were getting cars from Premium Motorsports. It was bare bones. At that point, they had a charter, but beyond owning a charter, there was very little clear long-term investment in the series. That's the point LaJoie is making there, and I think it's a fair one, but could have been articulated a whole lot better. That quote did not come off well. Fans, I think justifiably, are kind of dunking on him for it. There's a reason this show is recorded. I don't do a whole lot of live stuff because I am terrible at stumbling over my words, phrasing things awkwardly, and I never want to give people the wrong impression. I do really try to choose my words carefully on this show, and if I get it wrong, I'll do a second take, which is why you see all the cuts and edits. I try to make it sound natural. It is fairly natural, but I try to edit out the mishaps and mistakes so I don't step on my toes the way Corey LaJoie, I think, did in that moment. One more comment from Corey I'd like to react to. He expressed a willingness to race in trucks or Xfinity next year, if that's the opportunity that presents itself. But he also says,
there are between 18 and 23 years old, there are 10 people that have more than $3 million to go buy a seat anywhere. There's not an Xfinity program that somebody's going to call anybody up to drive for nothing and get paid to drive.
And I think he is 100% accurate. He makes a great point here, brings up a topic that few in the industry seem comfortable talking about. And I understand why. It sort of flies in the face of the world's greatest stock car drivers narrative. Not saying these guys aren't all talented. Ty Gibbs, clearly extremely talented. He's also Joe Gibbs' grandson. Like, he was going to get this opportunity. Cole Custer is an Xfinity Series champion. Really talented. His dad also owns the team. I don't mean to put guys on blast, but you look in the Xfinity Series. Riley Herbst, Brandon Jones, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed. These guys, they're talented, no doubt. Many of them will go on probably to be Cup Series stars one day, but they also have money behind them. And Corey LaJoie's point is a great one. Even though he has Cup Series experience, is a recognizable name amongst NASCAR fans, if he doesn't have several $1 million of sponsorship behind him, he's not going to get a top Xfinity Series ride. We've seen other drivers trying to rebuild their careers like Matt DiBenedetto, Ty Dillon go to Rackley War in the Truck Series because that's not a top 10 truck, and that team is largely self-funded by Rackley Roofing. Even Joey Logano, a two-time Cup Series champion in his prime, has said he can't get a Truck Series ride unless he brings his own sponsorship. That's how this business works. You have to be talented, sure, but more importantly, you need to bring money. Typically, the money follows the talented guys, but sometimes that's not always the case. We've known that forever, but a lot of folks in the industry seem uncomfortable talking about it, and I get why, but Corey LaJoie sort of addressing it head on there. It's a big issue. It's an issue at the local level, it's an issue at ARCA, it's an issue in trucks, it's an issue in Xfinity, and one day it could continue to become a bigger issue in Cup. That's a big problem for stock car racing and all of motorsports writ large. Anyway, to conclude the Corey LaJoie reaction segment, again, I got mixed feelings watching/listening to this episode of Stacking Pennies. My initial gut feeling is that Corey LaJoie will not be racing full-time in NASCAR next year. He sounds content, comfortable with where he's at in his life, the journey he's been on up to this point. I don't see him jumping into a less than stellar car. And again, factoring in the money, factoring in his lack of results this season, I'm not sure a super competitive team is going to rush to make him an offer. If a solid trucker Xfinity team were to pick Corey LaJoie up, I think he could eventually win in that equipment. I don't think he's a bum. But as he admits, he's made mistakes this year. Obviously, the results have been extremely disappointing. Again, the tone of this episode, and I know it's a long way until 2025, that tells me it's unlikely LaJoie races full-time next year. But honestly, I hope I'm wrong. Give me your best guess. Where do you think Corey LaJoie could realistically end up next year? This sort of ties into our final quick topic of the day. Speaking of the Xfinity Series and available rides, Haas factory team has 2 seats for next year. Riley Herbst more than likely going to Cup. We already know Cole Custer will drive for Haas in the 41 Cup car next year. 2 Xfinity seats wide open. Joe Custer, who runs the team, has already expressed a desire to get good drivers in there who can contend, run up front, race for wins. Lee Spencer, veteran reporter from CatchFence.com, was on Sirius XM NASCAR radio today and name-dropped 2 notable drivers as possible candidates for those Xfinity Series seats. She said, quote, "It would not surprise me to see Ryan Preece in one of the Haas factory cars. Another name that I heard going into the Haas factory car yesterday was Sheldon Creed. I don't know how solid that is, but that would be 3 Xfinity teams in 3 years." Oh, yeah. Oh, so the Ryan Preece rumor, I guess, is not shocking. He maybe has some support from United Rentals. He's a Kevin Harvick Incorporated client, Cup Series experience. He's won in Xfinity before. I think that would be a great fit. I hope that works out for Ryan Preece. But Sheldon Creed to Haas? Goodness me. Couldn't win at RCR. Okay, got kind of run out of the building there. Felt for him. Shows up at Joe Gibbs Racing. Hasn't won there either. I mean, shoot. He's 26 years old, right? He's not some young, inexperienced teenager anymore. In fact, he's getting beat by the teenager who took his RCR ride in the points. I'm kind of out on Sheldon Creed. I understand he has a cult following. I think there is raw ability there, no doubt, but I'm out. I'm not buying Sheldon Creed as a top NASCAR prospect, other than clearly he has funding behind him and teams value that. I hope I'm proven wrong. He seems like a fun guy, fun personality. I empathized with him at the end of last season with how the whole RCR fallout happened. I feel he was made unfairly the scapegoat there. I felt for him then, defended him then, but I can't defend Sheldon Creed anymore. He can't win in RCR equipment, can't win with Gibbs, at least not yet. Going to Haas, is that going to fix everything? Goodness gracious. Well, we'll see. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I think Preece in a Haas Xfinity car, that's a championship contender. I believe it. I'm a bigger Ryan Preece believer than many are. I think that works. Creed? He'll make the playoffs, probably. But is he going to win? Championship contender? No, I'm out at this point. What do you guys think? Down in the comment section below. While you're down there, leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Helps me out a ton. Subscribe if you're new and you love talking NASCAR every single day. Been a busy couple of off weeks, honestly. And a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. Just saw some other breaking news, so I think we'll have even more to talk about later this week. Thanks for watching, y'all. I will catch you again soon.